What's up, what's up, guys? It's your boy WF. In this video, we're going to take a deep dive into the defensive tackle position. We're going to talk about what type of players fit into this role, where you can go with it, what type of substitutions you can make to, tailor this position to what you want to do, and overall just get more out of it than what you've already been doing. The reason I'm really taking deep dives into these positions are because a lot of people just, go with the standard, okay, this is a regular number one defensive tackle, number two defensive tackle, and we're just going to play it, chalk. We're not going to experiment. We're not going to use any extra thought and try to better the formation that's at hand. So I want to see if I can, open your eyes a little bit into the different things that you can do with the actual position and the players that may play in the defensive tackle position. So go ahead and thumbs up this video, like this video, subscribe to your boy, because I keep it fresh with Madden tips, Madden thoughts, Madden theory, Madden gameplays all the time. So I'm the guy to come to when we want to get real philosophical about this Madden thing. So subscribe to your boy. So let's get right into it. Overall, just when people think about the defensive tackle position, they think about it, like I said, in a stale way of, this is the guy, he's already number one on my depth chart, he's number two on my depth chart. They're going to be the guys that are playing. So this goes hand in hand with, 4 down lineman fronts as well as 3 down lineman fronts in like the 3-4 family. It's a little bit different, but overall it's the same. You can use the same thought process that I'm going to go over throughout this entire video. But people are very stale when they think of it. I made a shift around Madden 25 in my thought process of how I'm going to handle my defensive linemen. How can I get the best out of these guys? I made a serious shift in that year's game because I started shying away from the thought process that I just mentioned before, the standard number one and number two players, and started thinking about what is it that I want from these guys? What is my end goal in a perfect world? What types of players, what archetype of players are fitting these positions? And now I've come up with this 3 standard archetypes of players that could play defensive tackle roles. And I've come up with 3 of them. And the first role is pretty standard. It's the run first, run stopping fat man. That's the typical guy that you'd see in the 3-4, defensive tackle, defensive, end 3-4 defensive end alignments. Those guys are normally playing like this shade that that's highlighted right here. Those are the typical guys that are playing in the 4-3, the fat man, the guys that take up double teams, the guys that are super strong. Those are the run first, run stuffing guys. That's one archetype of the that you can think of guys that play defensive tackle. The second are the pass guys. I call it pass / speed guys. These are guys like for instance, to make it very simple, a pass first or a speed guy, you could substitute a defensive end, a 4-3 defensive end, and put him at defensive tackle. That's the easiest way to describe it to you. There's a little bit more depth to it, but that's the easiest way to get it to you so you understand. That's a pass type speed kind of guy that you put at defensive tackle. And there's a lot of defensive ends that have the ability to actually slide in and play that type of role as a defensive tackle. And last but not least, there is the balanced guy. That is typically the guy that you'll see in 4-3 defensive lineman situations. The outside, the 3 technique that is signified by the guy that's highlighted right here. Though he's typically your number one defensive tackle in a 4-3 set. That is normally your most balanced guy. So these are guys that are strong at playing both the run and stopping the run, and holding up against double teams, stuff like that, as well as having some speed, having some wiggle, having some pretty daggone good pass rush ability. So any player that's going to fit into a defensive tackle role, whether it be a 3-4 or a 4-3, they're going to be in one of those main archetypes. So that gets your mind out of the thought process of saying, hey, let's just go with the number one and number two guys. No, there are a lot of different players that can fit those roles. Now, I'm just gonna go. I haven't done this. I haven't prepped this. I'm just gonna go randomly into the Carolina Panthers depth chart and just see. what type of guys that they have in this particular year in the game. Okay, we don't necessarily have, okay, we got a guy with 80 speed, 85 speed. So there are a few dudes that are defensive ends by trait that are sitting at over 80 speed. So if you are so inclined, let's see what their pass rush is. I don't even remember the names, but they're a defensive end, so I can just go with that. Alright, so we got. Alright, so none of these dudes really have. Well, we got Peppers and Addison that have pretty daggone good finesse moves, but those we got guys that have speed that can play defensive tackle. Let's see if we have any fat guys that would signify them as being super run stuffer types. Okay, so we're looking at strength. Short is we definitely have two guys, Poe and Short, who end up being on number 1 and number 2 just off the depth chart. Is there anyone else down here? Nope. So it's really straightforward. They have two dudes that are super strong. They have two dudes that are super fast. Anybody that's in between that aren't the guys that have already been listed. So we got Caleb. So he got some pretty good strength. So I'm gonna look to see what these two dudes. Let's see what their with their block shedding, what their ratings are. See what they end up being. All right, so. Finesse, they can't really get after the passer. Block shedding, not too good in block shedding. So pretty much we just have the Carolina Panthers in this situation are very light as far as defensive linemen. A lot of teams will have some pretty decent depth. You just have to go and look for it. But in this situation, the Carolina Panthers are very light as far as their flexibility at defensive tackle. So I just want to take time just to do a quick, deep dive into what the actual depth chart looks like. So let's just get back to it. Well, like I mentioned before, the ratings are very easy to tell what you're getting from a player. So if you're looking for a run stuffer type of guy, the first thing you're looking for strength and you're looking for block shedding. Those are the two things that you're looking for guys that you are looking for to stuff the run. Strength is to handle the double team, and so they don't get pushed off the line, so they stay, pretty much stagnant, or might as well, or maybe they'll win their battle as far as strength is concerned, staying on the line of scrimmage. That's what that does. And block shedding is the ability to get off the block once they're actually engaged. So those are two things that you're looking for when you're looking for run stuffing types. Now, also, you can look towards, power move and finesse moves, but if I'm looking for a run type, I'm not really too concerned with that because I already know what I'm getting. I have to give up something to get something for the most part for players, unless you're dealing with those super high caliber players that can do everything. But if I'm looking for like speed guys or, rush types, guys that can handle the pass, I'm looking more towards my finesse move, my power move guys, what the actual speed rating is. So once they actually get off the block, what can they do with it? So and the balance guys, the guys that can do everything, you're looking for them to have a pretty decent rating in all of those things. So it's easier to find guys that can play a specific role. So it's easier to find these guys that can just stuff the run, or it's easy to find guys that can just handle the pass or good in running, good in space. But those balanced guys, they're super hard to find. Most teams, they will have only one. Sometimes some teams don't even have a really good version of that balance. So you have to, mix and match and, play more towards an archetype, a skill set, a scheme around them. So now we've covered, the archetypes and what ratings you're looking for when you're talking about defensive tackles. Let's get into the different types of personnel sets you can have. Let's first talk about, so get out your mind the pass rush guys. That's just a way to shake things up, a way to get super saucy, get cute with your defensive ends, put them at D tackle. That's just cute, right? Let's get down to the nitty gritty and handle the run game. Let's say we're in a situation we don't want anyone to run the ball. In this typical 4-3 defensive line set, let's think about like this. Typically, we have two defensive tackles that are highlighted right here, which are going back and forth. And then we have two defensive ends on the outside. Now, this is something that I really experimented with, like really deep in Madden 25, because that was a super hard game to stop the run. Now, why don't people think about, if they can't stop the run, put in a third defensive tackle at defensive end, or however you got to shift it around. Do you feel better at putting that third defensive tackle in at this position right here that's highlighted, and then moving this guy to the defensive end spot? It depends. Whatever you want to do, test it out, figure out what works for you. Why don't people do that? Why don't people do that? Because typically defensive ends, even if he isn't a high tier guy, some teams will have three really good defensive ends. Some teams really will actually have that. Some teams will just have two really good ones and just have like a few middle of the line guys. But those middle of the line guys are still favorable matchups against tight ends. So there's a three defensive lineman look, which, let's say you're worried about the run to the strong side and your opponent doesn't flip their formations too much. You can run three defensive tackles in these locations right here. And let's say you're super serious and you're super all in and stopping the run, period. You can do 4 defensive tackles. Think about it. That defensive tackle is going to have a better chance at handling that left tackle than a typical defensive end. The only defensive ends that are super able to handle offensive tackles in running situations are the top tier guys. So why don't I shift things into my favor when I don't have to have a top tier guy, but he's still able to handle that offensive tackle? Let's just put a defensive tackle right there. If we're super dedicated to stopping the run, these are different ways that you can think about playing your guys that people don't really do. They don't know about it. They see it in the depth chart, but they don't really think too much about it. Move your guys around, play around with them, see how things work in practice mode. Defensive tackles are some of the most underutilized people in the entire depth chart that you can get the most out of for doing the least. If you're having trouble stopping the run, just plug in defensive tackles. It's too easy. So now that we've talked about the archetypes, the ratings you have to look at, let's talk about ratings a little bit more right now. Let's say you run this 4 defensive tackle look. You have a defensive tackle at that defensive end that's highlighted right there. Think about the matchups. Think about if they've been running outside runs. If you put your guy with the highest strength to handle that tackle right there, I guarantee you're gonna see an improvement right away of how he holds his ground, how he's able to stifle that reach block maybe, or that out block. He's gonna be able to handle it so much better. That block shedding, even if he doesn't have as high of a block shed as a defensive end that you might have put in that situation, but he has the strength that allows him to hold that position much better. So in a situation where he's giving up a little bit of block shed, he's playing that position so much better, so you're not giving up ground, allowing your linebackers to flow over the top to make that tackle. That's something to think about. Something to think about in the sense of people just underrate the strength rating so much. The strength rating can do quite a bit of things if it's utilized correctly and in the right situations. So we've talked about ratings, archetypes, running different personnel setups with 3 defensive tackles, 4 defensive tackles. Man, if you run a 5-2 defense, you could run 5 defensive tackles if you got them. You could. You could. So just expand your mind, open your thoughts open to different ways to utilize that position, and man, you can do a whole lot of things. Defensive tackles are super cheap if you're playing Madden Ultimate Team as well. You can get some quality guys that have a certain skill set for very cheap. It's normally the guys that can do everything, the balance types that are costing a whole lot. But if you're looking for a guy that has specific skill set, you can probably get them for very cheap as far as cap wise and coin wise. Because people don't look to the guys that have a certain skill set. They look to the guys that can do everything. And those are the guys that typically have higher prices and everything because they can do more. But if you're only looking at a certain skill set, you're getting more bang for your buck. So you've learned pretty much. This has been a super deep dive on defensive tackle position. Hopefully you've got some good information out of it. If you like this video, go ahead and thumbs up your boy, subscribe to your boy. I'm hitting you guys with new Madden information, new Madden deep dives about positions, tips, personnel, all this, that, and the third, some gameplays here and there. It's your boy Colonel. I'm out.